Your weakness isn't what you think it is. It's not your fear, your doubt, or your hesitation. Your weakness is your belief that weakness must be hidden. Right now, in this moment, you're probably crafting another excuse, another defense, another elaborate lie about why you're not where you want to be. And that desperate scramble to appear strong, is the only weakness that's actually destroying you. Machiavelli knew something most philosophers refuse to admit. While others preached virtue and morality, he studied power in its raw form. And he discovered a truth so dangerous, most scholars bury it beneath academic rhetoric. The greatest deception isn't fooling others. It's fooling yourself about your own nature. Everyone watching this has been living a lie. Not a small lie, not a harmless lie, but a fundamental deception about what makes you weak and what makes you powerful. You've spent years, maybe decades, fighting the wrong war, attacking symptoms while feeding the disease, building armor against enemies that don't exist while inviting the real threat to live in your mind. Think about it. How much energy did you spend today maintaining your image? How many thoughts were devoted to hiding what you think others can't see? How many opportunities died because you were too busy protecting a version of yourself that isn't even real? If you're ready to look at what you've been running from, if you can handle discovering that your entire strategy for strength has been keeping you weak, then you're about to learn something that changes everything. This isn't self-improvement. This is archaeological excavation of your deepest self-deception. And Machiavelli, he's about to become your guide through the ruins of who you pretended to be. Welcome to Psychra. Most people read The Prince and see a manual for controlling others. They miss the deeper truth. Machiavelli wasn't just teaching rulers how to govern states, he was revealing how we govern ourselves. Every principle he outlined for dominating kingdoms applies to the kingdom of your own mind. And here's what's terrifying. You've been a tyrant to yourself, using his tactics backwards, creating elaborate systems of self-oppression that no external enemy could ever devise. The Machiavellian mirror shows you this. Every weakness you possess follows a predictable pattern. First, you discover it. Maybe you failed at something. Maybe someone pointed it out. Maybe you just noticed others had what you lacked. That's the moment of discovery. Innocent, human, universal. Then comes concealment. This is where the real damage begins. You don't just hide the weakness, you architect an entire personality around avoiding its exposure. The person terrified of being seen as stupid becomes aggressively intellectual, collecting degrees like armor. The one who fears being unloved becomes a people pleaser, saying yes until they disappear entirely. The one who can't handle criticism becomes a perfectionist, paralyzed by standards so high that failure becomes impossible, because they never truly try. Look at the workaholic. Surface level, they appear driven, successful, invaluable. But the Machiavellian mirror reveals the truth. They're hiding a deep inadequacy, a terror that if they stop producing, they'll be exposed as worthless. Their 16-hour days aren't strength. They're an elaborate performance of worth, more exhausting than any honest conversation about their fears would be. Or the people pleaser, smiling through violation after violation of their boundaries. They've constructed such an elaborate system of niceness that they've forgotten there's a human being underneath who might have needs, opinions, rage. Their weakness isn't their anger. It's their belief that anger makes them unlovable, so they smile while they seethe, creating a prison where the guards and the prisoner are the same person. The perfectionist might be the most tragic of all. Paralyzed by shame, they've created standards so impossible that they have a built-in excuse for never being seen. I would share my work, but it's not ready yet. I would pursue that relationship, but I'm not good enough yet. Always yet, never now. Their perfectionism isn't protecting them from judgment. It's guaranteeing they'll never risk the possibility of acceptance. Here's what Machiavelli understood. Your elaborate defenses reveal more than your flaws ever could. The energy you spend maintaining these facades, the constant vigilance, the performed confidence, the exhausting pretense, that energy could forge your weakness into strength. But instead, you're using your power to maintain your own imprisonment. This isn't motivational speaking. This is strategic analysis. Every moment you spend hiding is a moment you're not growing. Every lie you tell yourself about why you can't be seen is another bar in your cage. The Machiavellian mirror doesn't show you who you are. It shows you the system you've built to avoid being who you are. So here's your first exercise in Machiavellian self-mastery. Don't identify your weakness. That's too easy, too surface. Instead, identify the elaborate system you've built to hide it. What personality traits have you developed to avoid exposure? What achievements are actually armor? What behaviors are performances? Because here's the truth that changes everything. Looking directly at what you've been avoiding isn't weakness. It's the first act of Machiavellian power. When you stop being afraid of your own reflection, you stop being governable by your fears. The mirror becomes a tool of mastery instead of an instrument of torture. The tyrant you've been to yourself is about to be overthrown. But first, you have to see the kingdom you've built on the foundation of a lie. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." But here's what scholars miss. He wasn't advocating deception. He was describing the prison most people build for themselves. You've spent so much energy crafting what you appear to be that you've forgotten what you really are. And that performance? It's killing you. Your inner weakness thrives in darkness. Like a parasite, it feeds on your shame, grows stronger through your denial. Every time you pretend it doesn't exist, you give it more power. Every time you craft another layer of false strength, you become weaker. It's psychological physics. The harder you push against something, the stronger it pushes back. Try not to think of a white elephant. See, the very act of resistance creates persistence. But the Machiavellian solution isn't what you'd expect. It's not about eliminating weakness or becoming invulnerable. It's about something far more dangerous, weaponizing what you've been hiding. Consider Julius Caesar. History remembers him as a colossus, but he suffered from epilepsy, what Romans called the falling sickness. Instead of hiding it, he transformed it into divine proof. His seizures became moments when the gods spoke through him. His weakness became evidence of his supernatural destiny. He didn't overcome his condition, he weaponized it. Franklin Roosevelt couldn't hide his polio. The wheelchair was too obvious. So he transformed physical weakness into moral strength. His limitation became proof of his resilience. Every public appearance in that wheelchair said, "If I can lead despite this, imagine what we can overcome together." His vulnerability became his authority. Churchill battled depression so severe, he called it his black dog. Instead of hiding it, he used it. His darkness gave him the gravity to face Nazi Germany. His struggles with despair gave weight to his words about never surrendering. A cheerful optimist couldn't have led Britain through its darkest hour, but a man intimate with darkness could. This isn't inspiration. This is strategy, and it operates on 3 tactical principles. First, calculated revelation disarms suspicion. When you reveal a carefully chosen weakness, people stop looking for what you're hiding. The executive who admits to struggling with work-life balance isn't questioned about the affairs destroying his marriage. The influencer who shares her anxiety attacks isn't suspected of the eating disorder she's actually battling. You control the narrative by choosing what to reveal. Second, strategic vulnerability creates unexpected power dynamics. When someone expecting a fight encounters openness, they're psychologically disarmed. A leader who says, "I don't have all the answers," gains more trust than one who pretends omniscience. Vulnerability, deployed strategically, becomes a form of dominance. Third, choosing which weaknesses to reveal gives you control over your identity. You become the author of your own story. The entrepreneur who openly discusses past bankruptcy while building a new empire controls how that failure is interpreted. The speaker who starts with, "I used to be terrified of public speaking," transforms weakness into qualification. Here's what's mind-bending. Everyone instinctively knows this law. We trust people who show flaws. We distrust those who show none. We're drawn to authentic struggle, repelled by perfect facades. Yet most people exhaust themselves maintaining an image nobody believes anyway. You're performing strength for an audience that's desperate to see your humanity. The modern CEO who admits burnout in company meetings while concealing his crumbling mental health understands this. The influencer who shares anxiety about follower counts while hiding her Machiavellian content strategy gets it. They're not being honest, they're being strategic. They're feeding the audience's need for authenticity while protecting what actually matters. You've been victimized by your own perfectionism, exhausted by your own performance, imprisoned by your need to appear invulnerable. But what if your weakness isn't something to hide, but something to wield? But how do you kill a weakness that's been protecting you since childhood? How do you assassinate something that believes it's keeping you alive? Because make no mistake, your weakness thinks it's your bodyguard, and it's about to fight for its life. Killing your inner weakness isn't about violence. It's about precision. You don't destroy weakness by attacking it. You dissolve it by understanding its purpose. Most people fail because they're waging war on themselves, exhausting their resources in battles that can't be won. The Assassination Protocol isn't combat, it's surgery, removing outdated survival mechanisms with the accuracy of a master strategist. Here's what changes everything. Every weakness you carry once protected you. That fear of rejection? It kept you safe from judgment when you were too young to handle criticism. That need for control? It shielded you from chaos when your world was unpredictable. That perfectionism? It protected you from shame when mistakes meant danger. Your weaknesses aren't enemies. They're outdated bodyguards, still defending against threats that no longer exist. The Assassination Protocol operates in 3 phases, each requiring military precision. Phase 1. Recognition. Brutal specificity is non-negotiable. I'm insecure tells you nothing. I check my phone every 3 minutes after posting anything, analyzing likes and comments for evidence that I'm worthless. That's intelligence you can use. I have trust issues is a hiding place. I test people by telling them fake secrets to see if they'll betray me is a target you can eliminate. Write down your weakness in excruciating detail. Not the label, but the behavior. Not the category, but the specific actions. What exactly do you do? When? With whom? Under what circumstances? The more precise your recognition, the cleaner your assassination. Phase 2. Origin. Now you become an archaeologist of your own psyche. When did this pattern first save you? Don't guess, investigate. That need to control everything? Trace it back. You'll find a moment when chaos meant danger. Maybe your parents' divorce, maybe financial instability, maybe an illness that made life unpredictable. The origin always makes sense. Ask yourself, how old was I when this pattern first protected me? What was happening in my life? What threat was I defending against? Because here's what's profound. Your adult struggles are childhood solutions that outlived their purpose. You're running software designed for a 5-year-old in a 40-year-old operating system. Phase 3. Replacement. This is where Machiavellian genius emerges. You don't try to become strong where you were weak. That's the amateur mistake that guarantees failure. Instead, you develop a new response that serves the same protective function but grants you power instead of imprisoning you. The people pleaser doesn't become cruel. They develop strategic boundaries. I need to check my calendar becomes their new yes. The control freak doesn't become careless. They master selective control, focusing only on what truly matters. The perfectionist doesn't become sloppy. They perfect the art of strategic imperfection, knowing when excellence serves them and when it enslaves them. If you're still watching, you're already different from 90% of people who'll stay weak. Prove you're in the 10% who take action. Comment below with the age you were when your biggest weakness first protected you. I'll bet it's younger than you think. And if this is hitting hard, that like button is your first act of killing the weakness that says you don't deserve transformation. Here's why most people fail. They attack weakness with willpower, creating internal civil war. They try to overcome patterns through force, exhausting themselves in unwinnable battles. But the Assassination Protocol isn't about strength versus weakness. It's about making weakness obsolete. Like replacing candles with electricity. You don't fight darkness. You install a better system. Your weaknesses are like old bodyguards who don't know the war's over. They're still standing guard against enemies that died decades ago, checking for threats that no longer exist. They need honorable discharge, not execution. Recognition for their service, then release from duty. The assassination isn't violent, it's respectful. You're not destroying part of yourself. You're updating your defense system, and once you understand this, transformation becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Machiavelli understood what Jung would later call the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. But while Jung wanted integration, Machiavelli wanted domination. Jung sought wholeness, Machiavelli sought power. And here's the difference that changes everything. You don't need to become whole to become unstoppable. You need to reclaim the throne you've been pretending doesn't exist. Inside every weakness lives its opposite, a powerful quality you rejected because it frightened you. The people-pleaser's shadow contains ruthless boundaries, the ability to say no without explanation, to disappoint others without dying inside. They rejected this power because someone once taught them that love requires self-erasure. The control freak's shadow holds profound trust, the capacity to surrender, to flow with chaos instead of fighting it. They buried this strength because chaos once meant catastrophe. The perfectionist's shadow harbors creative destruction, the power to create imperfectly, to build and rebuild without shame. They rejected this because someone once made them believe mistakes were unforgivable. This isn't about finding silver linings in your struggles. This is about discovering you've been sitting on a throne of power while begging for scraps of approval. Here's your shadow mapping exercise. Identify your most shameful weakness, the one that makes you cringe. Now ask yourself, what strength lives on the other side of this? What power have I rejected because it seemed too dangerous to wield? The good girl who never speaks up. Her shadow contains fierce protection, the capacity to defend boundaries with terrifying clarity. The nice guy who can't say no? His shadow holds uncompromising standards, the ability to reject what doesn't serve him. They're not weak. They're powerful people playing weak because power once meant danger. Lincoln's crippling depression gave him access to profound empathy, the ability to hold the nation's grief during civil war. His shadow wasn't his weakness, it was his superpower. Tesla's madness, his inability to conform to social norms, fueled innovations that changed humanity. His rejection of normalcy wasn't a flaw, it was his throne. But this isn't inspiration, this is strategy. The Shadow Throne Protocol teaches you to access this power without being consumed by it. Recognition. Identify the qualities you've rejected. What behaviors disgust you in others? What strengths do you admire but could never possess? That's your shadow calling. Reconciliation. Understand why you rejected these qualities. When did displaying this strength become dangerous? Who taught you this power was wrong? Recognition without reconciliation leads to shadow possession, becoming what you once feared. Reintegration. Strategically incorporate shadow elements. The people pleaser doesn't become cruel overnight. They practice small boundaries, micro doses of disappointment, until their shadow strength becomes accessible power. Here's what's devastating. Most people spend their entire lives running from their greatest strengths. You've been taught to fear the very qualities that would make you unstoppable. Your shadow isn't dark because it's evil. It's dark because you've kept it hidden from light. But here's what changes everything. The modern world has weaponized your shadow against you. Every algorithm, every social dynamic, every power structure is designed to keep you fearing your own strength. The question is, once you reclaim your shadow throne, how do you rule in a world designed to keep you weak? The modern world tells you to love yourself and embrace your flaws. Machiavelli would laugh. Then he'd teach you something useful. Love is not the tool for transformation. Strategy is. You cannot love weakness away. You cannot affirm yourself into strength. You cannot positive think your way out of patterns that have been protecting you since childhood. But you can architect a new identity using the materials of your current one. Here's the transformation paradox that breaks most minds. To kill your inner weakness, you must first make it your advisor. Your weakness knows things about you that your conscious mind refuses to acknowledge. It knows your triggers, your fears, your secret needs. Fighting it is like a general going to war without intelligence. But studying it, that's how empires are built. Think like a strategist, not a warrior. When a general faces an enemy, he doesn't attack blindly. He studies movement patterns, supply lines, motivations. Your weakness operates the same way. It has patterns, needs, strategic objectives. Learn them, not to destroy, but to understand. Because resistance creates persistence, but understanding creates obsolescence. This brings us to identity architecture, the art of building a new self using materials from the current one. You're not trying to become someone else. That's the amateur mistake that guarantees failure. You're conducting strategic renovation, keeping the foundation while upgrading the structure. Consider how great companies pivot during crisis. Kodak didn't die because film became obsolete. They died because they fought change instead of redirecting their expertise. But Netflix? They went from mailing DVDs to streaming to content creation, using each identity as foundation for the next. That's identity architecture in action. The Strategic Identity Protocol operates in 3 phases. First, map your current identity's structural weaknesses. What beliefs are load-bearing? Which behaviors are decorative? The perfectionist discovers their need for control is structural, but their procrastination is just decor. Remove one, and the building collapses. Remove the other, and it actually improves. Second, identify load-bearing beliefs that must be carefully replaced. You can't just rip them out. The whole structure will collapse. Instead, you install temporary supports while you renovate. The people pleaser can't suddenly stop caring what others think. But they can redirect that sensitivity toward reading people strategically rather than anxiously. Third, design new systems that make old patterns obsolete. This is where genius emerges. You don't overcome weakness. You make it unemployed. The procrastinator doesn't develop willpower. They design their environment so delay becomes impossible. Automatic systems, forced deadlines, public accountability. They make procrastination homeless. Here's the crucial insight most miss. Successful transformation isn't about fighting your nature. It's about redirecting it. The perfectionist doesn't become sloppy. They perfect the art of strategic imperfection, knowing exactly when excellence serves them and when it enslaves them. They become connoisseurs of good enough, masters of calculated mediocrity. The control freak doesn't become passive. They become strategic about what deserves control. They learn the art of selective obsession, controlling the 20% that produces 80% of results while letting the rest burn. Their need for control doesn't disappear. It becomes focused, lethal, effective. Look at how successful people actually operate. They don't overcome procrastination. They design environments where delay is impossible. They don't conquer fear. They create contexts where courage is the only option. That executive who never misses deadlines? She doesn't have superior willpower. She has superior systems. That entrepreneur who takes massive risks? He hasn't conquered fear. He's designed his life so staying safe is scarier than taking action. The transformation paradox reveals its deepest truth. You don't overcome weakness by becoming strong in opposition to it. You make weakness irrelevant by building systems where it has no function. A fish doesn't overcome its inability to climb trees. It builds its life in water. Your weakness isn't something to defeat. It's something to make homeless through strategic design. This isn't healing. This isn't growth. This is strategic obsolescence, and it's the only transformation that actually lasts. Today's battlefield isn't in Italian city-states. It's in your notifications. Every ping is a power play. Every app is a Machiavellian prince, ruling not through armies but algorithms. And you're not a user. You're the resource being mined. Your weakness isn't just personal anymore. It's profitable. Social media feeds on your validation seeking like a vampire feeds on blood. Every time you check likes, you're bleeding power. Dating apps monetize loneliness, keeping you swiping through an endless casino of maybe. News apps profit from your anxiety, serving doom in digestible doses. The algorithms know your weaknesses better than you do, because they helped create them. But here's where Machiavellian understanding becomes your weapon. The Digital Sovereignty Protocol reverses the game. First, recognize you're in a coliseum. These platforms are designed for combat, your attention versus their profits, your insecurity versus their engagement metrics. Once you see the arena, you can choose how to fight. Strategic posting times train algorithms to serve you, not slave you. Post when you won't check responses. Engage when you choose, not when anxiety demands. Break the stimulus-response chain that makes you a puppet. Intentional engagement patterns shatter addiction cycles. The algorithm expects predictability. Give it chaos. One day, engage deeply. The next, vanish. Vary your patterns until the algorithm can't predict you. Ungovernability through inconsistency. Apply shadow integration to your online persona. That perfectionist tendency, use it to curate strategically, not obsessively. That need for validation, transform it into market research, not identity verification. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Your digital weakness makes you profitable. Companies worth billions depend on your insecurity. Zuckerberg's empire runs on your need for approval. Dating app valuations soar on your loneliness. Your fear is their fuel. But once you understand your weaknesses as tools rather than flaws, the spell breaks. The algorithm loses power when you no longer need what it's selling. Use Instagram's reach without needing its validation. Build LinkedIn connections without craving endorsements. The platform becomes a tool, not a master. Look at the entrepreneur who posts consistently but never checks metrics until monthly reviews. She uses Instagram's algorithm while remaining psychologically sovereign. The artist who builds audience through value, not vanity metrics. He creates for impact, not likes. These aren't digital hermits. They're strategic players who understand the game. Digital platforms are designed to keep you weak, always seeking, never satisfied. But Machiavellian understanding transforms you from product to player. You give algorithms what they want while taking what you need. Symbiosis, not submission. Your digital coliseum audit. Which apps exploit which weaknesses? Is Instagram mining your comparison tendency? Is Twitter harvesting your outrage? What psychological needs are being monetized? How can you reverse these patterns? The gladiators who survived Rome's Colosseum learned one truth: understand the arena or die in it. Your digital survival depends on the same wisdom. These aren't suggestions, they're laws, as immutable as gravity, as reliable as physics. Violate them and you'll fail every time. Honor them, and transformation becomes inevitable. After centuries of humans trying to change, patterns emerge. Those who succeed follow these laws. Those who fail violate them. The choice is yours. The first law. Weakness is a location, not an identity. Language creates reality. When you say, "I am weak," you're declaring an identity. Identities don't change, they defend themselves. But when you say, "I have areas of weakness," you're describing a location, and locations, you can leave those. This isn't semantic games, it's strategic positioning. Watch what happens. "I'm an anxious person" becomes, "I experience anxiety in specific situations." Suddenly, you're not fighting yourself, you're addressing circumstances. "I'm a procrastinator" becomes, "I have patterns of delay around certain tasks." Now you have a problem to solve, not an identity to defend. Marcus Aurelius understood this. His meditations never say, "I am weak." They say, "I noticed weakness arising in this moment." He treated his struggles as temporary weather, not permanent climate. You can't transform what you believe you are. You can only change what you have. The second law. Every weakness contains instructions for its own defeat. Your weakness isn't your enemy. It's your teacher in disguise. Anxiety screams about your need for control. Decode the message. You need better systems, clearer boundaries, more certainty in specific areas. Anger reveals unmet boundaries. Someone crossed a line you never drew. The anger contains instructions. Define your limits, communicate them, enforce them. Napoleon studied his defeats with more intensity than his victories. Each failure contained intelligence about what needed adjustment. Waterloo wasn't just a loss, it was a masterclass in overextension. Your weaknesses operate the same way. They're not punishments. They're precise feedback about what needs recalibration. Here's your decoding system. Take any weakness. Ask what it's protecting, what it's demanding, what it's revealing. The answers become your blueprint for transformation. The third law: the weakness you kill today will resurrect tomorrow in new form. This law breaks most people. They defeat procrastination only to find it returns as perfectionism. They conquer people-pleasing only to discover it morphed into workaholism. This isn't failure, it's evolution. Your weakness is upgrading, requiring higher mastery. Mandela understood this. 27 years in prison didn't break his weakness for anger. It refined it. His rage at injustice evolved from destructive fury to strategic force. Each resurrection demanded greater wisdom, deeper understanding, more sophisticated responses. Evolution tracking becomes essential. Document not just victories, but transformations. How did your fear of rejection become fear of success? How did your need for control become need for certainty? Track the evolution, and you'll anticipate the next form. Here's the revolution. Most people follow society's laws: hide weakness, project strength, never fail. But these laws keep you weak. Nature's laws demand different. Acknowledge location, decode intelligence, embrace evolution. Your inner revolution. Exercise. Write your personal transformation constitution. Which of your identities are actually locations? What intelligence do your weaknesses contain? How have they evolved? Create protocols for each law. This isn't self-help, it's self-government. And in revolution, you write new laws. Your weakness dies not with a scream, but with a whisper. One day, you'll reach for that familiar pattern, that need for approval, that fear of exposure, that exhausting performance, and find only empty space. Where weakness once lived, strategic power now resides. This is how real transformation happens. Not in dramatic moments of breakthrough, but in quiet extinctions of patterns that no longer serve you. Here's Machiavelli's greatest gift, and it's not what you think. He didn't teach us to manipulate others. He taught us to stop manipulating ourselves, to end the exhausting deception of pretending we're strong while bleeding power through hidden wounds, to stop the civil war between who we are and who we could become. The transformation is complete when you no longer need to be strong because you've stopped believing you're weak. This paradox holds everything. You haven't added strength. You've removed the lie. You haven't conquered weakness. You've made it irrelevant. The exhausting performance of power transforms into the ease of authentic authority. Your weakness is already dying. The question is, what will you build in its grave? This is your legacy declaration. Your inheritance awaits, but inheritance requires action. If you've watched until now, you've already separated yourself from the masses who'll stay trapped. But knowledge without action is just sophisticated weakness. Prove you're ready to inherit this power. Comment below. Which weakness have you been protecting that's actually been protecting itself? Name it precisely. Your public declaration is the first act of assassination. Like this video if you're ready to stop hiding and start strategizing. That button isn't just engagement. It's your first strategic alliance with transformation. Subscribe with notifications on if you're serious about architecting permanent change. This channel is your war council for psychological sovereignty. Share this with someone whose weakness is costing them their throne. Sometimes the greatest gift is showing someone their prison has no locks. The assassination is complete. The throne is empty. Your shadow awaits coronation. The only question remaining is whether you'll claim what's already yours. Power doesn't wait, neither should you.